Some books are heard once, others become doors you can return to when you are ready. We are turning the journeys you loved into premium editions you can study, highlight, and keep. Each volume preserves the core experience, now designed for quiet reading on any device. Listeners have been asking for these words in book form, and the library is growing around that request. Every edition is available in PDF, EPUB, or both, with instant access through the Path of Knowledge library. If one of these books has been waiting for you, the library is open in the description. Path of Knowledge. Introduction. The life that repeats without permission. There is a moment that comes before every repetition. It is so brief that most people never notice it. It arrives before the familiar argument, before the abandoned plan, before the unnecessary purchase, before the return to the person who has already shown you who they are. It appears before you say yes, when every honest part of you means no. It appears before you postpone the work that could change your life. In that moment, you are not yet trapped. The old future has not yet become real. A door is still open. And then something inside you chooses what it has chosen before. You may call it weakness. You may call it bad luck, poor discipline, self-sabotage, fate, or human nature. But none of those names explains the strange precision with which a life can repeat itself. Different year, same fear. Different room, same silence. Different face, same relationship. Different opportunity, same retreat. The scenery changes while the pattern remains untouched. This book found you at the place where repetition becomes visible. Not because a mysterious force selected you from among all people, and not because these words possess supernatural authority. It found you because attention has a way of recognizing what the deeper mind is finally prepared to examine. You notice this title because some part of you is tired of living as the consequence of commands you do not remember giving. You have one mind that speaks and another that acts. The speaking mind makes promises in the morning. The acting mind reveals its loyalties at night. The speaking mind creates resolutions. The acting mind protects routines. The speaking mind says it wants freedom. The acting mind often prefers what is familiar, even when the familiar hurts. This hidden intelligence is not your enemy. It is not a demon beneath your thoughts, and it is not proof that you are broken. It is a system built to preserve whatever it has learned to call safe. We will call it the second mind. The second mind includes habits, emotional associations, automatic predictions, conditioned reactions, and the identity you rehearse without words. It lives in the way your body tightens before a difficult conversation. It lives in the story you expect to hear before another person has spoken. It lives in the invisible ceiling above your ambition and the invisible floor beneath what you will tolerate. It is not separate from you. It is the part of you that learned through repetition while your conscious mind was busy explaining the world. The second mind does not ask whether a pattern is beautiful. It asks whether the pattern is known. That distinction has governed more of your life than you may wish to admit. Familiar disappointment can feel safer than unfamiliar possibility. Familiar conflict can feel more honest than quiet affection. Familiar scarcity can feel more believable than abundance. A person may consciously pray for a different life, while unconsciously defending every structure that keeps the old life intact. This is why forcing yourself rarely creates lasting change. Force can produce a dramatic day, sometimes a dramatic month, but when the force disappears, the old architecture remains. You return to the rooms your inner world still recognizes as home. Lasting change begins when you stop treating the second mind as a disobedient servant and begin understanding it as a loyal guardian with an outdated map. This book is about replacing that map. You will learn how a pattern is built, why emotion gives it gravity, how identity turns repetition into destiny, and why the body can continue expecting a danger that the present no longer contains. You will examine the private contracts formed in childhood, disappointment, humiliation, praise, survival, and love. You will learn the languages the second mind understands: image, repetition, emotion, environment, expectation, and evidence. Most importantly, you will learn how to give it a new command without declaring war on yourself. Do not expect a collection of magical phrases. Words matter, but words spoken without credibility are rejected by the mind that has watched your behavior for years. Do not expect a scientific claim that thoughts alone control every event. Life contains chance, systems, other people, biology and circumstances no individual can command. The power discussed here is more intimate and more demanding. It is the power to alter the patterns through which you meet reality, the decisions you repeat, the signals you notice, the standards you enforce, and the actions you are willing to sustain. That power is not everything, but it is enough to change almost everything you are still calling inevitable. As you listen, one old pattern will probably come to mind. Do not choose 10, choose 1. The mind loves overwhelming lists because an impossible mission allows it to preserve the present. Choose the pattern whose repetition has become too expensive. Perhaps it is the way you disappear when you are needed. Perhaps it is the way you overwork to earn a worth that cannot be earned. Perhaps it is the way you abandon your own plans to rescue everyone else. Perhaps it is the way you mistake anxiety for intuition or intensity for love. Hold that one pattern quietly as we continue. You do not need to fight it yet. You do not need to forgive it, bless it, conquer it, or understand every year that created it. For now, see it. The moment a pattern becomes visible, it is no longer the whole sky. It becomes an object within awareness, and what can be observed can be interrupted. What can be interrupted can be studied. What can be studied can be redesigned. The door before repetition is small at first. This book is here to make it larger. Chapter 1. The stranger who has been choosing for you. Imagine that you enter a room and discover a stranger sitting at a control panel. The panel contains every important system in your life. One dial regulates what you believe you deserve. Another controls how much uncertainty you can tolerate. A row of switches determines which people feel trustworthy, which opportunities feel dangerous, and how visible you are willing to become. The stranger is not malicious. In fact, the stranger has spent years trying to protect you. The problem is that the instructions were written long ago. This stranger is the collection of automatic assumptions that acts before conscious thought catches up. You have experienced it whenever your reaction surprised you. A harmless question made you defensive. A generous opportunity made you suspicious. A kind person made you restless, while an unavailable person felt magnetic. You knew what would be wise, yet another movement rose first. By the time the conscious mind began its explanation, the body had already voted. We often imagine decisions as clean events. Information arrives, reason evaluates it, and a choice follows. Some decisions work this way. Many do not. The brain is continuously predicting, comparing, filtering, and preparing action before the full story enters awareness. Past experience helps shape those predictions. This is efficient. If you had to consciously relearn how to open a door, read a face, or drive through traffic every morning, ordinary life would become impossible. Automaticity is one of the mind's great achievements. It is also the reason an old lesson can continue controlling a new situation. Suppose you learned early that disagreement threatens connection. Perhaps a caregiver withdrew affection when challenged. Perhaps anger filled the house whenever someone spoke honestly. You may grow into an intelligent adult who values communication, yet feel a surge of danger whenever you need to set a boundary. Your conscious mind sees a conversation. The second mind sees exile. Suppose praise arrived only when you performed. You may become successful, disciplined, and admired, yet remain unable to rest without guilt. Your conscious mind sees an evening without work. The second mind sees the disappearance of love. Suppose your family survived through vigilance. Bills, illness, conflict, or instability taught everyone to scan for what might go wrong. Years later, calm may feel suspicious. The absence of crisis does not feel like safety. It feels like the moment before impact. The stranger at the control panel is made from conclusions like these. They are not stored only as sentences. Many exist as associations. Visibility equals danger. Need equals shame. Wealth equals betrayal. Rest equals laziness. Desire equals disappointment. Love equals pursuit. Success equals isolation. A person can reject these ideas intellectually while organizing an entire life around them emotionally. This is why insight alone can be so frustrating. You can understand a pattern perfectly and still repeat it. The conscious mind has acquired a description, but the second mind has not acquired a new experience. Consider a path through tall grass. The first person crosses with difficulty. The second can see a faint direction. After hundreds of crossings, the path becomes obvious. Water gathers there. Feet naturally enter it. A new traveler may mistake it for the only way through. Your repeated responses create paths of expectation. Each repetition makes the next repetition easier. The path is not destiny, but it is the route of least resistance. To create another route, you must first stop feeling ashamed that the old one exists. Shame is a poor cartographer. It makes you stare at the fact that you are lost while refusing to study the terrain. It says, I should not be here. But you are here. The useful question is not whether you should have learned this pattern. The useful question is what the pattern is trying to accomplish. Every durable pattern protects something. Procrastination may protect you from evaluation. Perfectionism may protect you from criticism. Emotional distance may protect you from grief. Overgiving may protect you from rejection. Constant planning may protect you from uncertainty. Self-doubt may protect you from the social risk of becoming visible. Even a destructive habit can contain a protective intention wrapped in an expensive method. Ask your chosen pattern one question. What danger do you believe you are preventing? Do not answer too quickly. The first answer will often be moral. I am lazy, I lack discipline, I always ruin things. These are accusations, not explanations. Go beneath them. If I completed the work, what might happen? If I spoke honestly, what might happen? If I allowed love to be calm, what might happen? If I earned more, changed direction, became visible, or stopped rescuing everyone, what might happen? The answer may sound unreasonable to your adult mind. You may discover that success feels like separation from your family. You may discover that peace feels like vulnerability. You may discover that being needed became your proof of belonging. Do not ridicule the answer. The second mind does not update because you mock the age at which it learned. It updates through safety, evidence, and repetition. The stranger is not truly a stranger. It is a younger intelligence that remained at the control panel because no one returned with revised instructions. You are returning now. The first act is observation without immediate correction. For several days, notice the moment your pattern begins. Notice the body before the story. Does your throat tighten? Does your chest become hollow? Does your attention accelerate? Do you reach for a screen, a person, food, work, noise, or sleep? Notice the phrase that appears. I will do it later. This will not last. They will leave. I am not ready. It does not matter. This phrase is the password to the old control room. Write it into memory, not as truth but as a signal. The next time it appears, say internally, the old operator has arrived. That sentence creates distance without violence. You are not denying the fear. You are recognizing the system. The reaction may still come. Your hands may still tremble. Your desire to retreat may remain. But a witness now stands beside the control panel. At first, the witness is quiet. With practice, the witness becomes choice. Chapter 2. The Blueprint Beneath the Choice. A building can be renovated many times while preserving the same blueprint. Walls change color, furniture is replaced, windows become larger. Yet the structure continues directing how people move through every room. Human lives are often renovated in the same way. You change jobs but preserve the relationship to authority. You change partners but preserve the expectation of abandonment. You move to another city but carry the same loneliness into every street. You create a new goal with the same private definition of worth. The surface changes. The blueprint remains. The blueprint is the network of beliefs that determines what events mean. An event by itself rarely dictates one emotional response. Two people can receive the same silence and enter different worlds. One thinks they must be busy. Another thinks, I have done something wrong. One experiences a delay as inconvenience. Another experiences it as rejection. The event is real. The meaning is constructed from history. This does not mean all interpretations are equal or that pain is imaginary. It means the second mind uses earlier experience to complete incomplete information. It fills silence with prediction. It fills uncertainty with memory. The blueprint contains rules. Some are spoken in families, most are demonstrated. Do not trust anyone. Money changes people. People like us do not succeed there. You must be strong. Never let them see you need help. Love must be earned. If you relax, everything will fall apart. Each rule may have served a purpose in the world where it formed. A child cannot evaluate a family system with adult distance. The child adapts. If silence keeps peace, silence becomes wisdom. If achievement brings warmth, achievement becomes attachment. If invisibility reduces danger, invisibility becomes survival. The problem is not that you adapted. The problem is that adaptation can disguise itself as identity. You stop saying, I learned to stay quiet, and begin saying, I am a quiet person. You stop saying, I learned to expect disappointment, and begin saying, I am realistic. You stop saying, I learned to refuse support, and begin saying, I am independent. Language closes around the pattern. Identity is powerful because the mind protects consistency. Once a behavior becomes part of who you believe you are, contradictory action feels false, even when it is healthy. The person who identifies as the responsible one may feel selfish when resting. The person who identifies as overlooked may distrust recognition. The person who identifies as unlucky may overlook the small decisions that would require a more difficult story. To expose the blueprint, examine repetition across categories. Ask what feeling appears in your relationships, your work, your money, and your private ambitions. The circumstances may differ, but a shared emotional conclusion often connects them. I am not chosen. I must prove myself. There is never enough. I cannot depend on anyone. If I become visible, I will be attacked. If I receive, I will owe. This conclusion is one of the central beams in the building. Do not rush to replace it with its opposite. If your life has been organized around I am not chosen, repeating I am always chosen may feel theatrical. The second mind will compare the new statement with years of remembered evidence and dismiss it. Begin with a bridge that is both honest and directional. I am learning to recognize where I am already welcomed. I can choose relationships in which care does not have to be earned through suffering. I am becoming someone who can remain present when good things arrive. I can create evidence that support and self-respect belong together. A bridge statement does not demand belief in a fantasy. It invites participation in a process. Now look for the behaviors that keep the old conclusion alive. Beliefs are not only thoughts, they recruit action. If you believe you are not chosen, you may pursue unavailable people, remain silent around available ones, and interpret ambiguity as rejection. Each behavior produces evidence for the belief. The blueprint designs a room that proves the blueprint was correct. This is the loop you must interrupt. Belief shapes attention. Attention shapes interpretation. Interpretation shapes action. Action creates consequences. Consequences reinforce belief. The loop can be entered at any point. You can question an interpretation. You can redirect attention. You can choose a different action before full belief arrives. You can change the environment so the old behavior becomes less automatic. You do not have to begin by feeling transformed. Often, action is the first vote for a new identity. Suppose your blueprint says that asking for help makes you weak. Do not begin with a life-changing request. Ask a trustworthy person for one small, specific form of assistance. Then remain present while they respond. Notice the urge to apologize, over-explain, or immediately repay. Let the experience become evidence that receiving does not erase dignity. Suppose your blueprint says visibility invites humiliation. Share one useful idea in a setting with manageable risk. Do not evaluate the entire future from one response. Let your nervous system experience being seen and surviving. Suppose your blueprint says rest causes collapse. Choose 20 minutes of deliberate rest after defining what is complete for the day. When the world remains standing, record the result. The second mind learns from lived contradiction. Not contradiction so large that it creates panic, but contradiction repeated with enough safety to become credible. This is how a new blueprint begins. Not with demolition, but with a doorway where no doorway existed. You open it once, then again. Light enters from a direction the old structure did not predict. Eventually, movement changes. Eventually, the building must change with it. Chapter 3. Emotional gravity. Some memories are photographs. Others are magnets. You can remember a fact without being pulled toward it. You know where you lived 10 years ago, what color the walls were, and perhaps what you ate on an ordinary morning. The information remains, but it has little gravity. Then there are memories that rearrange the present, the moment they are touched. A voice changes its tone, and an old humiliation enters the room. A message goes unanswered, and every abandonment seems to happen again. A possibility appears, and the body prepares for a failure that has not occurred. Emotion gives experience weight. The second mind does not catalogue life like a neutral historian. It marks what seems important to survival, belonging, identity, and reward. Strong emotion tells the system, remember this, avoid this, seek this, prepare for this. The result is not always a detailed memory. Sometimes what remains is a direction. Move closer, become smaller, fight, leave, please, freeze, perform. This is emotional gravity. It bends attention toward whatever resembles the original lesson. Imagine that you were publicly embarrassed while attempting something new. Years later, a creative opportunity appears. You may not consciously recall the earlier moment, but your attention begins collecting reasons to delay. You notice every flaw in the plan. You imagine every possible judgment. You call this careful thinking. Yet the mind is not evaluating the opportunity evenly. It is orbiting an old emotional center. Or imagine that affection in your early life arrived unpredictably. Warmth was intense, then absent. You learned to associate love with pursuit and uncertainty. As an adult, stable care may seem strangely flat, while inconsistency produces fascination. You may call the fascination chemistry. The second mind calls it recognition. Recognition is often confused with truth. Because a feeling is powerful, we assume it is accurate. Because anxiety is loud, we call it intuition. Because attraction is immediate, we call it destiny. Because shame is familiar, we call it conscience. But feelings are signals, not verdicts. They contain information about the present, the past, or both. The work is not to distrust emotion. The work is to ask what time the emotion belongs to. When a reaction feels larger than the event, pause before building a philosophy around it. Ask 3 questions. What is happening now? What does this resemble? What am I predicting because of that resemblance? The first question returns you to observable facts. The second honors the pattern. The third exposes the future your body has already begun rehearsing. Suppose someone you care about is quiet. What is happening now? They are quiet. What does this resemble? A relationship in which silence preceded withdrawal. What are you predicting? That affection is disappearing, and you must either pursue or leave first. The prediction may be correct. People do withdraw, but now you can test it rather than obey it. You can ask a direct question. You can observe patterns over time. You can refuse to let one nervous system response write the entire story. Emotional gravity also shapes ambition. Many people do not fear failure as much as they fear the feelings failure might revive. The project is not merely a project. It is a courtroom in which an old accusation may be heard again. Not good enough. Too much. Who do you think you are? The mind protects against the verdict by delaying the trial. This is why reducing a goal to smaller actions can be more than productivity advice. It changes the emotional charge. Write 1 page instead of proving you are a writer. Make 1 call instead of proving you deserve success. Save 1 amount instead of solving your entire financial history. A small action can pass beneath the dramatic identity battle and create clean evidence. There is another form of emotional gravity that is less obvious, the pull of anticipated relief. A habit can become powerful not because the act itself is deeply pleasurable, but because it promises the end of discomfort. You check the phone to escape uncertainty. You buy something to interrupt emptiness. You over-explain to end the tension of being misunderstood. You say yes to end the danger of disappointing someone. Relief arrives quickly, and the second mind learns the route. Every time relief follows the old behavior, the path becomes more persuasive. To change it, you must learn to remain with a small amount of unfinished discomfort, not unlimited pain, not reckless exposure, a small deliberate interval in which the old command is not immediately obeyed. When the urge appears, wait for 1 minute. Feel where it lives in the body. Name it without drama. Urgency is here. Shame is here. The desire to escape is here. Breathe naturally. Do not attempt to become peaceful. Simply refuse to make the feeling responsible for the next action. Then choose an action that serves the life you are building. The action may be tiny. Close the shopping page. Leave the message unanswered until you can respond with dignity. Open the document and write the first imperfect sentence. Say, "Let me think about that," instead of surrendering an immediate yes. This interval is one of the most important rooms in the new architecture. At first it will feel empty. The second mind expects the familiar release and receives uncertainty instead. Stay there long enough to discover that an urge can rise without becoming an order. A feeling can be intense without becoming a prophecy. Discomfort can move through you without carrying you back to the past. You are not trying to eliminate emotional gravity. You are creating another center of gravity, self-trust. Self-trust is not the certainty that you will always feel calm. It is the memory that you can remain present while a feeling changes. Each time you pause, observe, and choose, you add weight to that memory. Eventually, the new action is no longer a heroic exception. It becomes familiar. And the second mind has always followed what becomes familiar. Chapter 4. The Identity Contract. Every identity contains permissions and prohibitions. The generous person is permitted to give but may feel forbidden to receive. The strong person is permitted to endure but may feel forbidden to ask. The intelligent person is permitted to understand but may feel forbidden to be a beginner. The spiritual person is permitted to forgive but may feel forbidden to become angry. The responsible person is permitted to carry the weight but may feel forbidden to put it down. An identity can begin as a compliment and end as a cage. Long before you consciously chose who to become, other people reflected versions of you back to yourself. You are the quiet one. You are difficult. You are mature for your age. You are too sensitive. You are the one we can depend on. You will never be like your brother. You are gifted. You are careless. You are lucky. You are a problem. Some labels injured you immediately. Others rewarded you. Both can become contracts. A contract says, "If I perform this identity, I may keep belonging." The child praised for needing nothing may become an adult who hides every need. The child celebrated for achievement may experience ordinary mistakes as a collapse of self. The child blamed for family tension may keep accepting responsibility for emotions that belong to others. The identity survives because it once organized connection. Later, you may say you want to change while unconsciously fearing the social consequences of becoming someone else. If I stop rescuing, who will I be to the people who love my rescue? If I become successful, will I still belong to those who bonded through struggle? If I speak, will the people who preferred my silence accuse me of changing? If I heal, what happens to the story that has explained me for years? The second mind hears identity change as possible exile. This is why new behavior can produce guilt, even when no harm has been done. Guilt is not always proof of wrongdoing. Sometimes it is the emotional alarm that sounds when you violate an old role. You set a healthy boundary and feel cruel. You rest and feel irresponsible. You charge fairly for your work and feel greedy. You allow someone else to solve their own problem and feel selfish. The feeling is real. The accusation may be inherited. To revise an identity contract, separate values from roles. You can value generosity without becoming endlessly available. You can value strength without refusing tenderness. You can value excellence without making perfection the price of dignity. You can value loyalty without remaining loyal to what destroys you. The value is alive. The role is a costume the value once wore. Ask yourself what quality the old identity was trying to preserve. The responsible one may be protecting care. The invisible one may be protecting peace. The achiever may be protecting contribution. The rescuer may be protecting connection. Then ask how an adult version of that quality would behave. Care with boundaries. Peace with a voice. Contribution without self-erasure. Connection without rescue. This is not the destruction of identity. It is maturation. Choose one sentence that names the old contract. I belong when I am useful. I am safe when no one is disappointed in me. I have worth when I am exceptional. I am good when I have no anger. I am loved when I abandon myself first. Read the sentence slowly. Notice whether the body recognizes it before the mind agrees. Now write a revised contract that contains both dignity and direction. I belong in relationships where my presence matters more than my exhaustion. I can disappoint an expectation without betraying a person. My worth survives ordinary performance. Anger can inform a boundary without governing my behavior. Love that requires self-abandonment is not the only love available to me. The revised contract will not feel natural immediately. Natural often means rehearsed. Your task is to give the new identity behavior. Identity becomes credible through votes. Every action is a vote, not a final declaration. One boundary is a vote for self-respect. One completed promise is a vote for reliability. One honest conversation is a vote for courage. One evening of rest is a vote for a life in which existence does not have to be justified by exhaustion. You do not need every vote to be perfect. Elections are not decided by one ballot. A difficult day does not erase the identity under construction. What matters is the direction of the count. The old identity will sometimes return with evidence. It will show you every moment you failed, retreated, begged, delayed, or surrendered. Do not argue with the evidence. Add context. Yes, that happened, and it is not the only thing happening now. This response is stronger than denial. It allows the past to remain true without allowing it to remain sovereign. The second mind pays attention to what you repeatedly prove. If you say you are becoming trustworthy and then abandon every promise to yourself, the words remain decoration. Choose promises small enough to keep. Wake when you said you would once this week. Complete the 10-minute task. Leave the conversation at the boundary you named. Put the saved amount where you promised. Each kept promise becomes a signature on the revised contract. Eventually, you stop asking whether you are allowed to become this person. You recognize that the person is already being formed by what you repeatedly do. Chapter 5. The body that remembers tomorrow. The body is always preparing for a future. Before an important meeting, the heart may accelerate. Before entering a familiar home, the shoulders may tighten. Before sending a vulnerable message, the hand may hesitate. The event has not yet unfolded, but the body is already living inside a prediction. This is one of the second mind's most convincing illusions. It makes an anticipated future feel like a present fact. When the body prepares for threat, thoughts arise to explain the preparation. You feel tension, then search for danger. You feel heaviness, then conclude that action is impossible. You feel excitement mixed with uncertainty, then interpret the intensity as a warning. The story may arrive after the state. This does not mean that bodily signals should be ignored. The body detects information quickly and sometimes wisely. It also generalizes. A nervous system trained in one environment can continue applying the same alarm in another. The body remembers tomorrow by predicting it from yesterday. If every important conversation once became a conflict, the body may enter defense before a safe conversation begins. If closeness once preceded control, affection may produce a desire to escape. If financial uncertainty once threatened survival, even a manageable expense may trigger disproportionate fear. The present becomes crowded with unfinished preparation from the past. Many people attempt to solve this by commanding the body to calm down. Calm down is usually an accusation disguised as instruction. It tells the system that its reaction is unacceptable while offering no new information. Try orientation instead. Orientation means showing the body where and when it is. Look around the actual room. Name 5 ordinary objects. Notice the distance between you and the door. Feel the support beneath your feet or back. Listen for the farthest sound, then the nearest. Let the eyes move rather than locking onto a single imagined threat. Say the date. Say your age. State what is happening in one plain sentence. I am sitting in my home before a conversation. I am opening a document and feeling resistance. I am waiting for information I do not yet have. Orientation does not guarantee comfort. It separates current reality from remembered expectation. Then lengthen the exhale slightly, without forcing a performance of peace. A gentle exhale can signal that immediate action is not required. Relax one area that is not essential to the task: the jaw, the hands, the space around the eyes. You are not trying to erase the state. You are reducing the number of systems recruited into it. Now ask, what would safety look like during the next 60 seconds? Not forever. not for the entire relationship or project for the next minute. Safety may mean slowing the response. It may mean standing closer to an exit. It may mean asking for clarification. It may mean opening the file without demanding brilliance. It may mean placing one hand on the desk and letting the body feel something stable while you speak. This is how the body receives a new tomorrow, in small experiences that end differently. You enter the conversation and remain respectful without disappearing. You begin the work and survive imperfection. You receive kindness and do not search immediately for its hidden cost. You feel an urge and allow it to pass without obedience. The ending matters. After a new action, pause long enough to register what happened. People often rush past success because the second mind is still waiting for danger. Mark the result. I said what I meant and I am still here. I rested and the important work remained possible. I allowed support and my dignity remained intact. I was visible, and discomfort was not destruction. This is not empty affirmation. It is memory consolidation through attention. You are telling the system which part of the experience deserves to be stored. Without this pause, the mind may remember only the anxiety that preceded the action. With the pause, it can also remember the completion. There is wisdom in respecting pace. A person who has spent years avoiding conflict does not need to begin with the most dangerous conversation available. A person learning to tolerate visibility does not need to expose their most private work to a hostile audience. The goal is not to prove courage through overwhelm. The goal is to expand capacity without teaching the body that change itself is unsafe. Choose challenges that are difficult enough to create new evidence and small enough to complete with awareness. This is the middle path between avoidance and flooding. Over time, the body updates its predictions. The heart may still accelerate, but the acceleration no longer means stop. Uncertainty may still feel intense, but intensity no longer proves danger. A boundary may still bring guilt, but guilt no longer decides the boundary. The future begins to feel different before it becomes visible. This is a quiet milestone. One day you imagine a conversation, an opportunity, a relationship, or a larger life, and the body does not immediately close the door. There is space around the image. Curiosity appears beside fear. The body has not forgotten the past. It has learned that the past is no longer the only available tomorrow. Chapter 6. The Inner Gatekeeper. Not every thought is permitted to become a possibility. Before an idea reaches conscious consideration, an inner gatekeeper compares it with what you already believe. Some ideas enter easily. Others are rejected before they can be examined. If you have always seen yourself as capable, a difficult opportunity may appear challenging but imaginable. If you have learned that people like you do not belong there, the same opportunity may become invisible, ridiculous, or threatening. The gatekeeper protects coherence. It filters what you notice, what you remember, and what you dismiss. This is why two people can walk through the same day and collect evidence for opposite worlds. One notices cooperation, another notices disrespect. One sees an opening, another sees a trap, neither sees everything. Attention is selective by necessity. The danger begins when selection disguises itself as objective reality. If the second mind expects rejection, it highlights delayed replies and overlooks steady care. If it expects failure, it magnifies one error and minimizes 10 improvements. If it expects scarcity, every expense becomes proof, while every resource becomes temporary or irrelevant. The gatekeeper is not lying, it is curating. To change the collection, give attention a new assignment. Do not ask it to prove that life is perfect. That instruction will fail because reality contains pain. Ask it to find evidence of movement, choice, support, and capacity that the old blueprint habitually excludes. At the end of each day, recall 3 moments. Where did I act differently, even slightly? Where did reality respond differently than the old pattern predicted? What resource was available that I would once have overlooked? The answers may be modest. You paused before agreeing. Someone accepted your no. You returned to a task after interruption. You felt anxiety and did not abandon the plan. You asked a question instead of inventing an answer. You noticed that an old urge lasted 7 minutes rather than forever. Small evidence is not insignificant evidence. A wall is built from small units repeated. The gatekeeper also controls language. Certain words close possibility before investigation begins. Always. Never. Everyone. No one. Impossible. That is just who I am. Absolute language gives a temporary pattern the authority of natural law. Replace it with accurate language. This happens often. I have not learned that yet. This relationship has not offered safety. I feel unable to act while I am in this state. The old pattern is strong here. Accuracy is not weakness. It creates an opening for change without requiring dishonesty. The gatekeeper may resist positive evidence by creating exceptions. They were only kind because they wanted something. I succeeded because it was easy. I kept the promise because the day was unusual. Notice this reflex. A mind trained to protect a negative identity will explain away anything that threatens it. When good evidence arrives, resist both inflation and dismissal. Say, this happened too. You do not need to make one success prove that everything has changed. Let it prove only that the old rule is not absolute. One accepted boundary proves that not every no causes abandonment. One completed task proves that paralysis is not total. One peaceful connection proves that intensity is not the only form of intimacy. The gate opens through exceptions. Then exceptions become alternatives. Alternatives become patterns. Patterns become identity. There is another gatekeeper at work, your environment. A room can remember a habit. A phone can become a doorway to avoidance. A chair can become associated with worry. A certain person can reactivate an identity you have outgrown. Change is easier when the surroundings stop issuing the old command. Place the desired action where attention will meet it. Remove one obstacle from the new path and add one obstacle to the old. Put the book on the pillow. Place the walking shoes beside the door. Move the distracting application away from the first screen. Write the boundary before the conversation. Prepare the first sentence of tomorrow's work tonight. This is not a lack of willpower. It is intelligent architecture. The conscious mind has limited energy. The environment can carry part of the intention. A visible cue can remind you of a decision made in clarity when the old pattern returns under pressure. Choose one object to represent the revised contract. It may be a key, a stone, a ring, a card, or a page, folded in a particular way. Give it no magical power. Its power is association. Each time you see or touch it, remember the next action of the person you are becoming. The gatekeeper understands repetition. At first, the object is merely an object. After enough deliberate encounters, it becomes a threshold. You touch it before speaking honestly. You see it before beginning the work. It reminds the body that another route exists. Eventually, you no longer need the object. The gatekeeper has learned your face. It begins admitting possibilities that once appeared to belong to someone else. Chapter 7. The Language of Images. The second mind thinks in scenes before it thinks in arguments. Say the word failure and notice what appears. It may be a face, an empty room, a number, a memory, or an imagined future. Say freedom and another landscape forms. Words open doors, but images often stand behind them. This is why worry can be so persuasive. Worry is not only verbal thought, it is repeated rehearsal. The mind creates a scene, the body responds to the scene, and the response makes the scene feel more credible. You suffer a future in advance, then call the suffering preparation. Imagination is not a supernatural remote control for external events. It is a rehearsal space. It can influence attention, emotion, and readiness. Athletes, performers, and speakers often use mental rehearsal because imagined practice can clarify sequences and reduce novelty. But useful rehearsal is specific, grounded, and connected to action. Fantasy avoids the path. Rehearsal prepares you to walk it. Most people imagine only the result. They see applause, wealth, love, completion, or relief. The image feels pleasant but teaches no behavior. When reality requires an uncomfortable step, the second mind has no rehearsal for it. Imagine the process instead. See yourself opening the document while resistance is present. See yourself breathing before answering. See yourself hearing a disappointing response and remaining aligned with your values. See yourself returning after an imperfect day. Include the friction. A believable scene is more powerful than a perfect one. Choose a moment related to your one pattern. It should last less than 30 seconds in imagination. Build it from the first-person perspective, through your own eyes. Where are you? What is the next visible object? What does your hand do? What sentence do you say? What feeling appears and how do you continue while it is there? Do not imagine becoming another species of person. Imagine one revised response. If you are learning boundaries, see the moment after the other person asks. Feel the familiar pressure. Hear yourself say, "I cannot commit to that." Stop. Do not add a long defense. Let the silence exist. Then see yourself remaining in the room. If you are learning consistency, see the moment when enthusiasm is absent. See yourself beginning for 10 minutes anyway. Imagine the ordinary desk, the imperfect mood, and the first completed unit. If you are learning to receive, imagine someone offering sincere support. Notice the urge to refuse. Hear yourself say, "Thank you, that would help." Let the support arrive without immediate repayment. Repeat the same short scene daily for a week. Change nothing important. Repetition allows familiarity to grow. The goal is not to force emotion. The goal is to make the new response less foreign. Then perform the smallest real version available. Without action, imagination can become a beautiful hiding place. With action, it becomes preparation. Images also reveal hidden contracts. If you imagine success and immediately see loneliness, criticism, or danger, do not erase the scene. Study it. The unwanted image may explain why conscious effort keeps meeting invisible resistance. Ask what success seems to cost. Belonging? Privacy? Safety? Love? Morality? Rest? Many people are not avoiding the desired future. They are avoiding the price their second mind has attached to it. Revise the scene to include what the old image excluded. See success with ethical boundaries, visibility with privacy, wealth with generosity, love with autonomy, strength with tenderness. Let the desired future contain your values rather than requiring their sacrifice. The point is not to guarantee an outcome. The point is to stop representing growth as betrayal. Be careful with images borrowed from other people's lives. A future assembled entirely from social comparison may energize you briefly and empty you afterward. The second mind recognizes when a vision has no emotional roots in your actual values. Ask what an ordinary Tuesday looks like in the life you want. Not the celebration, not the dramatic transformation. What time do you wake? What kind of work receives your attention? How do you speak to yourself when something goes wrong? What do you no longer tolerate? Who has access to you? What does enough feel like? The ordinary day is where identity lives. Create one image from that day and return to it. Let it be quiet, a clear desk, a calm conversation, money handled without panic, work completed without self-punishment, a home in which your body is not waiting for conflict. The new life becomes believable when you can imagine its ordinary texture. Then the gatekeeper stops treating it as fiction. Chapter 8. The Night Workshop. The day's demands become quieter. The conscious mind loses some of its grip. Unfinished conversations, repeated images, and emotional residues remain active as you approach sleep. This is why the final minutes of the day can influence the tone of the night and the first expectation of morning. There is no need to surround sleep with mystical claims. Rest supports learning, memory, and emotional processing. What you repeatedly attend to matters, especially when it becomes part of a stable routine. The night workshop is simply a deliberate way to close the day, so the old pattern is not given the final word. Most people enter sleep in one of three ways. They collapse from exhaustion, they distract themselves until awareness disappears, or they conduct a trial against the day, replaying mistakes and predicting tomorrow's difficulties. The second mind listens to the closing argument. Create a 7-minute ritual. Begin by ending input. Put distance between yourself and the stream of messages, headlines, and other people's urgency. The mind cannot settle while every second offers a new command. Next, review the day without prosecution. Name one moment when the old pattern appeared. Describe it in plain language. I felt pressure and agreed too quickly. I avoided the task after imagining criticism. I interpreted silence as rejection. Then identify the protective intention. I was trying to preserve connection. I was trying to avoid shame. I was trying to create certainty. This step turns punishment into understanding. Now revise the moment, not to deny what happened, but to rehearse what you want available next time. See yourself pausing, hear the bridge sentence, feel the discomfort, and watch yourself choose a different action. Finally, remember one piece of new evidence from the day. It can be small. I noticed the pattern sooner. I waited before responding. I completed one difficult step. I allowed a kind moment to remain kind. End with one command for tomorrow. The command must describe behavior, not a cosmic demand. Tomorrow, when I feel pressure, I will ask for time. Tomorrow, I will begin before I evaluate my mood. Tomorrow, I will ask one direct question instead of inventing a story. Tomorrow, I will let one good thing arrive without explaining it away. One command is enough. The second mind is not improved by an overloaded list. A precise instruction can organize attention. When the relevant moment appears, familiarity makes the new action easier to retrieve. If you wake during the night, do not turn the wakefulness into evidence that something is wrong with your future. Night thoughts often feel absolute because the world is quiet and the resources of daylight seem far away. Use one sentence. This is a night state, not a final truth. Return attention to physical support. The bed is holding you. The room exists around you. Let tomorrow remain unopened. Morning completes the workshop. Before taking in other people's messages, remember the one command. You do not need a long ritual. Place your feet on the floor and say what the next moment requires. Then create immediate evidence with an action that takes less than 2 minutes. Open the page, drink the water, send the appointment request, put the document on the screen, move the saved amount. The action tells the mind that the command was not ceremonial. Over weeks, this evening and morning bridge changes the relationship between intention and behavior. You stop ending the day with accusation and beginning it with reaction. The second mind receives a consistent sequence. Observe, understand, rehearse, act. The workshop remains quiet. No one applauds. There may be no dramatic sensation, yet life changes through such private rooms. The future is often built in minutes that look too ordinary to matter. Chapter 9. The Law of Familiar Pain. People do not always choose what feels good. They often choose what allows them to remain who they know how to be. This is the law of familiar pain. A known wound can feel safer than an unknown peace because the known wound comes with instructions. You know how to wait, pursue, overwork, apologize, withdraw, or survive. Peace may ask you to stop performing the identity built around the wound. Consider the person who repeatedly enters relationships with unavailable partners. The conscious explanation may be bad luck. Beneath it, unavailability may preserve a familiar role, the one who proves love, waits for love, earns love, or suffers nobly for love. A truly available partner removes the chase and exposes a different fear. Without pursuit, can I receive? Without uncertainty, can I feel alive? Without suffering, who am I? Or consider the person who lives in cycles of financial crisis. Circumstances matter, and not all scarcity is psychological. Yet within controllable areas, crisis can become familiar enough to organize attention. Urgency creates focus. Rescue creates relief. Stability, by contrast, requires maintenance, delayed gratification, and an identity not defined by emergency. Familiar pain offers hidden rewards. It may offer certainty. It may protect you from a greater risk. It may preserve loyalty to family history. It may create sympathy, intensity, moral superiority, or an excuse not to attempt what truly matters. Naming a hidden reward is not blaming yourself for pain. It is reclaiming the part of the pattern that still depends on participation. Ask what the pattern allows you to avoid. If I remain overwhelmed, I do not have to choose a direction. If I remain with the unavailable person, I do not have to risk being known by someone available. If I keep perfecting the plan, I do not have to submit the work to reality. If I remain the victim in every story, I do not have to examine my power. These answers can hurt. Let them hurt cleanly. Clean pain reveals, familiar pain repeats. The second mind may interpret peace as emptiness because chaos has supplied stimulation for years. When drama disappears, the nervous system can search for a problem. You may begin an argument, overspend, abandon a routine, or return to an old contact simply to restore a recognizable level of intensity. Do not mistake the boredom of withdrawal for the absence of life. You are withdrawing from a pattern. Early peace can feel flat because your senses were trained on peaks and crashes. Give the quieter life time to develop texture. Notice subtle pleasure, completing what you began, waking without regret, speaking without rehearsing defense, knowing where the money went, trusting the person whose behavior is consistent. Stability has a lower volume than chaos. It also has greater depth. Grief often appears when familiar pain is released. Even a destructive pattern may contain years of hope. Leaving it means grieving the future you kept believing it would eventually provide. You may grieve the apology that never came, the family role that never became fair, the version of yourself who waited so faithfully. Do not use transformation to escape grief. Grief is how the mind acknowledges that a contract has ended. Say what will no longer be asked of the past. I will no longer ask this person to become the source of my worth. I will no longer ask achievement to repair every old humiliation. I will no longer ask urgency to make me feel alive. I will no longer ask suffering to prove that my love was real. Then identify what you are willing to learn in its place. I am willing to learn the pace of mutual care. I am willing to learn consistency without crisis. I am willing to let dignity feel unfamiliar. This last sentence matters. The new life may not feel like home at first. Do not demand immediate comfort as proof that it is right. Sometimes discomfort means danger. Sometimes it means expansion. Distinguish them through evidence, values, and time. If a situation violates your safety or dignity, leave when you can. If a healthy situation merely violates an old expectation, remain long enough to learn. Familiar pain loses authority when you stop using familiarity as your definition of truth. The second mind then faces a new question. If pain is no longer the center, what will organize the life? The answer cannot be pleasure alone. Pleasure changes. Motivation rises and falls. A durable life is organized by values practiced until they become familiar. Honesty, steadiness, courage, care, contribution, rest, discernment. At first, values feel like choices. Then they become roads. Eventually, the roads become home. Chapter 10, The Command Without Force. The word command is often misunderstood. People imagine severity. They imagine a voice shouting at the mind, demanding obedience, punishing hesitation, and declaring war on every unwanted feeling. This approach can produce movement, but it also reproduces the oldest pattern many people carry. I am acceptable only when I can force myself to perform. A true command is not loud, it is clear. The second mind responds poorly to contradiction. If you repeat that you are confident while organizing your days around avoidance, behavior becomes the stronger instruction. If you declare that you deserve respect while returning repeatedly to contempt, the pattern hears your return. If you promise a new life each night and abandon the smallest commitment each morning, the promise becomes a ritual without authority. Authority is built through congruence. Say less, keep more. A useful command has 4 qualities. It is specific, it is observable, it belongs to you, and it can be practiced under ordinary conditions. I will be abundant is not observable. When money arrives, I will assign part of it before spending is observable. People will value me does not belong entirely to you. I will stop offering access where respect is repeatedly absent belongs to you. I will never feel fear is not human. When fear appears, I will take the next safe action before asking fear for permission is practicable. The command should contain a moment and a response. When this happens, I will do this. When I feel the urge to explain my boundary, I will pause after one clear sentence. When I begin predicting rejection, I will ask what information is actually available. When the work feels too large, I will complete 10 minutes before re-evaluating. This structure helps the new behavior appear at the doorway where the old pattern usually takes control. Choose one command for 7 days. Do not improve it every morning. The mind often uses optimization to avoid repetition. Let the sentence become familiar. Place it where you will encounter it. Rehearse it at night. Perform the smallest version when the cue arrives. At the end of the day, do not ask whether you felt transformed. Ask whether the command was remembered and practiced. Some days you will remember after the pattern has already completed itself. This still matters. Recognition after the event is the first stage of recognition during the event. Review the sequence without insult. Where did the cue appear? What did the body do? Which sentence gave the old behavior permission? Where could the new command enter next time? Then rehearse the entry point. The second mind learns timing. Eventually, you remember while the pattern is happening. You may still continue, but awareness has entered the room. Later, you remember at the beginning and interrupt the sequence. Finally, the new response becomes available before conscious struggle. This is how change often looks in reality. After, during, before. Do not despise the after stage. Force also appears when people choose commands far beyond current credibility. They attempt to leap from "I am worthless" to "I am limitless." The distance is so large that the phrase activates resistance. The mind begins producing counter-evidence. Use language that can survive contact with your history. I am practicing self-respect in one decision today. I can feel uncertainty without returning to what harmed me. I am building the capacity to keep promises to myself. I do not need complete confidence to act with courage. These commands do not sound as dramatic. They are stronger because they invite proof. There will be moments when firmness is necessary. Gentleness does not mean endless negotiation with a destructive pattern. When the cue is clear and the cost is known, make the next action simple. Put down the phone, leave the room, open the file, transfer the money, say no, ask the question. Firmness without contempt. The difference matters. Contempt says, I hate the part of me that struggles. Firmness says, I understand why this urge is here, and it is not choosing for us today. This sentence unites the conscious mind and the second mind under one identity. There is no enemy, only an old strategy whose authority has expired. Repeat the command through action until the body begins expecting a new ending. That expectation is the beginning of freedom. Chapter 11. The Evidence Ledger. The second mind is an accountant. It keeps a ledger of what seems to happen repeatedly. It records broken promises, ignored boundaries, avoided risks, and familiar endings. It also records courage, support, completion, and recovery, but only if attention allows those events to remain long enough to be registered. Negative experiences often enter the ledger automatically because threat demands attention. Positive evidence can pass quickly. You complete a difficult task and immediately focus on what remains. Someone treats you well, and you call it ordinary. You recover from a setback and remember only that you fell. The ledger becomes distorted, not because the positive never occurred, but because it was never entered. Create a daily record with 3 lines. The cue I noticed, the action I chose, the evidence this creates. The cue may be pressure to agree. The action may be asking for 1 hour to decide. The evidence may be that urgency can be tolerated without surrender. The cue may be fear of criticism. The action may be submitting imperfect work. The evidence may be that visibility can coexist with dignity. The cue may be loneliness. The action may be contacting a trustworthy friend rather than returning to a harmful relationship. The evidence may be that comfort has more than one doorway. Keep the entries factual. This is not a place for grand declarations. Specific evidence has weight. After 7 days, read the ledger from beginning to end. You may be surprised by what the mind omitted from its daily story. Change is difficult to feel while you are standing inside it. A record makes direction visible. The ledger should also include repair. A broken promise does not have to become proof of permanent unreliability. Repair it quickly and proportionally. If you missed 1 day, return the next. If you spoke harshly, apologize without turning the apology into self-destruction. If you crossed your own boundary, restore it at the earliest honest moment. Repair teaches a more useful identity than perfection ever could. Perfection says safety depends on never failing. Repair says trust can survive an error when responsibility follows. This matters because many old patterns become strongest after a mistake. The mind says the sequence has already been broken, so nothing matters now. One missed routine becomes a lost week. One unnecessary purchase becomes abandonment of the entire plan. One emotional reaction becomes evidence that healing was false. Reject the mythology of the perfect streak. Consistency is not the absence of interruption. It is the speed and honesty of return. Record returns in the ledger. I noticed sooner. I repaired within a day. I asked for help. I began again without waiting for a new month. This creates evidence for resilience, which is more valuable than fragility disguised as discipline. Share selected evidence with someone who respects the direction you are taking. Do not seek constant validation. Use witness wisely. A trustworthy person can reflect movement the old identity minimizes. They can also help distinguish real danger from inherited alarm. Choose witnesses who do not depend on your old role. Some people will resist your change because your exhaustion benefited them, your silence protected them, or your predictability made their own patterns easier. Their discomfort is information, not instruction. The ledger belongs to you. At 30 days, look for categories. Which cues appear most often? Which responses are becoming easier? Where does the environment still favor the old route? What command has become natural enough to replace with the next one? Do not turn this review into another performance system. The purpose is not to monitor yourself with suspicion. The purpose is to help the second mind see what is already changing. Evidence transforms hope into expectation. At first, you hope you can respond differently. Then you remember several times when you did. Eventually, when the cue appears, the mind predicts that you are likely to choose the new response. The ledger has changed sides. Chapter 12. The new evidence of self. There is a difference between changing behavior and changing the meaning of behavior. You can set a boundary while secretly believing you are cruel. You can rest while believing you are lazy. You can receive money while believing it makes you unsafe. The action changes, but the old identity interprets the action as a violation. For transformation to deepen, the meaning must change too. A boundary can mean care for the relationship that remains possible. Rest can mean protection of your capacity. Receiving can mean participation in a fair exchange. Visibility can mean service rather than vanity. The second mind is not only collecting what you do, it is collecting what you say the action proves. After each meaningful new behavior, complete this sentence. This is evidence that I am becoming someone who can remain honest under pressure. I am becoming someone who returns. I am becoming someone who allows calm to count as love. I am becoming someone who handles resources with attention rather than fear. Use becoming because identity is alive. The word makes room for practice. Be alert to the temptation to create a superior identity. Awakening can become another costume. You begin seeing yourself as more conscious than others, more disciplined, more healed, more deserving. The old hunger for safety simply changes language. A mature identity does not require another person to be asleep, so you can feel awake. The goal is not to become invulnerable. It is to become less divided. The person who speaks and the person who acts begin sharing the same direction. You no longer need secrecy to preserve the pattern. You no longer need dramatic promises to hide the absence of practice. Integration is quieter than reinvention. You may notice that certain relationships change. Some become deeper because you are finally present without performance. Some become tense because the old arrangement depended on your compliance. Some end. Do not measure the truth of your growth only by who remains comfortable. At the same time, do not use growth as permission for cruelty. A new boundary does not require contempt. A changed direction does not erase gratitude. Speak plainly. Accept that others may need time. Let consequences be clear without turning them into revenge. The new self is tested most honestly in ordinary moments. How do you act when no one sees the choice? How do you speak to yourself after a mistake? What do you do with 10 free minutes? Which promise receives action before mood? What behavior no longer requires an internal debate? These moments reveal what has entered the second mind. Celebrate naturalness when it arrives. One day you will say no without rehearsing for hours. You will open the work before anxiety assembles its argument. You will recognize unavailable affection without calling it fate. You will rest without presenting a case to an imaginary judge. The change may feel almost disappointing because there is no dramatic revelation. The new response simply happens. This is success. The pattern that once required heroic resistance has lost its position at the control panel. Do not search constantly for proof that the old self is gone. Old responses may return under fatigue, grief, illness, or stress. Their return does not mean the new identity was false. A familiar path remains visible even after a new road is built. Use the return as a reminder to restore conditions, sleep, support, orientation, smaller commitments, and clear commands. Capacity changes. Wisdom adapts the demand without abandoning the direction. The evidence of self is not a final certificate. It is a living record of alignment. You are not trying to become someone who never meets the past. You are becoming someone the past can no longer command without question. Chapter 13. The Architecture of a New Life. A new inner pattern requires an outer structure. Insight can open a door, but architecture determines whether you continue walking through it. If every day is organized around urgency, distraction, and access without limits, the old pattern receives constant support. The second mind learns not only from what you believe, but from what your life repeatedly makes easy. Begin with time. Every calendar is a visible statement about invisible priorities. Look at an ordinary week. Where is your attention already promised? Which commitments were chosen and which were inherited? Where does the life you say you want appear in actual time? Do not design an ideal week that requires a different personality, no interruptions and endless energy. Design a survivable week. Protect one block for the action that represents your revised identity. Make it small enough to defend and important enough to matter. If you are becoming a writer, protect the hour in which writing occurs, not the fantasy of a completed book. If you are becoming financially steady, protect the weekly review, not only the desired balance. If you are becoming honest in relationships, protect the pause in which you decide what you truly mean before agreeing. Architecture converts values into appointments. Next, examine access. Who can interrupt you? Which notifications can claim your nervous system? Which conversations leave you repeatedly abandoning your center? Access is not a moral right automatically granted to everyone who wants it. It is a design decision. Reduce unnecessary openings. Silence what does not require immediate response. Create a place where important work can begin without crossing a field of temptation. Define hours in which you are unavailable. The second mind relaxes when boundaries are predictable. Now examine objects. What does the room invite you to do? A visible screen invites checking. An open notebook invites writing. Food placed within immediate reach invites one action. Food prepared for the life you want invites another. A bill hidden in a drawer preserves anxiety. A simple system for handling it creates contact with reality. You do not need a perfect environment. Choose 1 square meter and make it loyal to the new life. The chair where you read. The surface where money is reviewed. The place where the phone rests while you speak with someone you love. The corner where tomorrow's first action is prepared. Small architecture sends repeated instructions without words. Relationships are also architecture. Notice who reinforces the identity you are leaving. Some people speak to your present. Others continue speaking to a version of you that made them comfortable. You cannot control their perception, but you can control how often you enter rooms where your growth must be defended. Seek people who practice what you are learning. Not people who perform perfection, but people whose ordinary behavior makes the new pattern feel normal. Calm relationships teach calm. Responsible action teaches responsibility. Honest repair teaches that conflict does not have to mean destruction. This is not about abandoning everyone from your past. It is about expanding the evidence available to your future. Create rituals for transitions. The second mind benefits from clear beginnings and endings. A short walk after work can tell the body that responsibility has changed form. Closing the notebook and naming the next step can prevent unfinished work from occupying the entire evening. Turning off one light can mark the beginning of the night workshop. Ritual is useful when it serves reality. It becomes avoidance when the ritual replaces the work. The architecture must include recovery. A system that works only when you are highly motivated is not a system. Decide in advance what the reduced version looks like. On a difficult day, perhaps the hour becomes 10 minutes. The full financial review becomes checking one number. The long exercise becomes a short walk. The deep conversation becomes a request to schedule it when both people can be present. Reduced is not abandoned. This principle protects continuity without demanding that every day carry the same capacity. The second mind learns that the identity survives changing conditions. Finally, remove one structure that exists only to preserve the old life. Delete the saved route back to the harmful relationship. Cancel the commitment maintained only by guilt. Move the object that triggers the unwanted ritual. Stop keeping a private escape from the promise you say matters. Removal creates grief because it makes the new direction real. Let reality become real. You are not arranging a stage on which transformation will someday appear. The arrangement itself is transformation. A life is made from what receives a place, a time, a boundary, and a return. The architecture does not have to impress anyone. It has to make the next honest action easier to repeat. Chapter 14. The Final Command. You have spent this book studying the voice beneath the voice. You have watched the second mind protect old maps, collect emotional evidence, defend identity contracts, and predict tomorrow from yesterday. You have learned that force is not authority, that feelings are signals rather than verdicts, and that a new life becomes credible through repeated action. Now the work must become one sentence, not because a sentence can contain everything, but because a command must be portable. It must travel with you into the moment when knowledge becomes difficult to remember. Return to the one pattern you chose at the beginning. See the earliest cue. Perhaps it is the tightening before you surrender a boundary. Perhaps it is the restless search for distraction before meaningful work. Perhaps it is the loneliness that makes an old door appear beautiful. Perhaps it is the first thought of not enough, too late, not ready, not for me. Name the cue without shame. Then identify the smallest action that changes the direction of the sequence. Not the action that solves your life. The action that prevents the past from making the next decision automatically. Take time before answering. Open the page. Ask what is true now. Leave the room. Tell the truth in one sentence. Contact the safe person. Allow the good thing to remain. Now build the final command. When the old future appears, I will create one piece of evidence for the new one. This command can contain every pattern, because it does not require a particular feeling. It requires one piece of evidence. Say it again. When the old future appears, I will create one piece of evidence for the new one. The old future will appear. It will arrive in a familiar face, a familiar urge, a familiar interpretation. Its appearance is not failure. It is the moment for which the command was made. Do not wait to feel powerful. Power often arrives after action recognizes itself. Create the evidence. If the past says you disappear, remain for one honest sentence. If the past says you abandon yourself to belong, allow one disappointment without surrender. If the past says you cannot be trusted, keep one small promise before the day ends. If the past says calm is empty, remain in the quiet long enough to discover its detail. If the past says one mistake destroys everything, repair the next available step. One piece of evidence does not complete the work. It changes the vote. Tomorrow create another. The second mind may test the command. An old pattern can feel stronger when it is no longer being fed automatically. Urgency rises. The mind produces exceptional reasons. Just this once, after this week, when I feel better, when they understand, when the conditions are perfect. Recognize negotiation from the old control room. You do not need anger. Return to clarity. I hear the old protection. We are creating different evidence now. Then act. There may be consequences. A real boundary may change a relationship. A real commitment may remove hours of distraction. A real decision may close options you kept open to avoid grief. Transformation is not the art of feeling different while preserving every arrangement. It is the willingness to let aligned action alter reality. Move carefully where safety, health, law, or livelihood are involved. Seek qualified help where it is needed. Inner work is not a substitute for medical care, mental health care, legal advice, financial expertise, or practical support. Wisdom includes knowing when a problem requires more than private reflection. Within your sphere of action, stop waiting for permission from the identity that benefits from delay. The command is yours now. Not a command over other people. Not a command over chance, nature, or every event. A command over participation. A command about the evidence your behavior will create when the old future returns. This is a quieter power than fantasy promises. It is also real enough to build a life. Chapter 15. The 7-Day Installation. Knowledge becomes part of the second mind through encounter. For the next 7 days, you will not attempt to transform every area of your life. You will install one new response at one familiar doorway. The simplicity may disappoint the part of you that prefers dramatic plans. Let it be disappointed. Drama is not the objective. Installation is. On the first day, observe. Do not force change. Watch the pattern begin, develop, and complete itself. Identify the earliest cue you can detect. Notice the body, the thought, the environment, and the promise of relief. At night, Write one clean description without judgment. Today the pattern began when this happened. I felt this. I predicted this. I did this. Observation turns an invisible command into a visible sequence. On the second day, interrupt. When the cue appears, create a pause of 60 seconds. If you notice only after the pattern, recreate the moment in memory and place the pause where it belonged. During the pause, orient to the present. Name what is factual. Let the body feel support. Ask what danger the pattern believes it is preventing. Do not demand an elegant answer. The pause itself is the work. On the third day, command. Use the sentence you designed. When the old future appears, I will create one piece of evidence for the new one. Then name the specific evidence. I will ask for time. I will begin for 10 minutes. I will tell the truth once. I will remain away from the old door tonight. Speak the command calmly. A command gains authority from action, not volume. On the fourth day, change the environment. Remove one invitation to the old behavior. Add one invitation to the new. Make the unwanted route slightly less convenient and the desired route slightly easier. Prepare the page, silence the cue, move the object, write the sentence, schedule the block, or ask the safe person to be available. Let the environment remember when motivation forgets. On the fifth day, receive evidence. Look deliberately for what the old blueprint excludes. Notice the boundary that did not destroy connection. Notice the discomfort that rose and fell. Notice the work that became possible after beginning. Notice the support that arrived without humiliation. Do not exaggerate the evidence and do not dismiss it. Say this happened too. On the sixth day, repair. Choose one place where the week did not unfold as intended. Return without ceremony. Send the correction. Restore the boundary. Complete the reduced version. Apologize if needed. Repair teaches the second mind that an error is no longer an entrance to abandonment. On the seventh day, integrate. Read the week's evidence. Ask what appeared sooner, what felt less absolute, and what action became easier to retrieve. Then choose the next 7-day command. You may repeat the same one. Repetition is not failure to advance. Repetition is how advancement becomes stable. At the end of each day, close with 3 sentences. This was the cue. This was my response. This is what the response proves is possible. Keep the language factual. The proof may be only that you noticed. On the first week, noticing is not a small result. The pattern once operated without witness. Now awareness is arriving. If the 7 days become chaotic, reduce the practice to one question. What is the next piece of evidence? Ask it before sleep. Ask it when you wake. Ask it at the doorway. Do not use the practice to monitor yourself with fear. You're not a guard watching a prisoner. You are an architect studying movement through a building. Curiosity will reveal more than accusation. After several weeks, the original command may lose emotional intensity. This is not proof that it stopped working. It may mean the response is becoming ordinary. Test the evidence. If the new action appears more naturally, allow the command to become quieter. Choose another doorway, only when the first has enough structure to survive reduced attention. One pattern at a time can seem slow, but every central pattern touches many rooms. Learning to tolerate disappointment may change boundaries, work, relationships, and money. Learning to return after mistakes may change health, creativity, and trust. Learning to receive without immediate repayment may change love, opportunity, and rest. The second mind does not need 100 commands. It needs a few commands lived deeply enough to become character. Conclusion. When the door remembers you. At the beginning, you were asked to imagine a moment before repetition. The moment may have seemed too brief to matter. An old feeling appeared, an old interpretation followed, and the old action closed the sequence. Life continued along a familiar track, while the conscious mind arrived later to explain what had happened. Now the moment has more space. Inside that space are questions. What is happening now? What does this resemble? What future am I predicting? What is the pattern trying to protect? What is the next piece of evidence? Questions slow the machinery. They return authorship to the part of you that can observe more than one possibility. You may not feel reborn after hearing these words. That is not the promise. The desire for instant rebirth can become another way to reject the person who must practice tomorrow. Transformation is less like becoming someone else and more like ending a long civil war within the same life. The conscious mind stops making promises it will not support. The second mind stops defending every outdated rule as survival. The body learns that discomfort can end without escape. The identity learns that belonging does not require the old costume. The environment begins carrying the new instruction, and action produces evidence that no affirmation could invent. There will still be grief. There will still be uncertainty. Other people will remain free to make choices you do not control. Circumstances will sometimes be unfair, painful, or beyond your influence. This work does not turn life into a mirror that obeys every thought. It changes the person who meets the mirror. You begin noticing the difference between intuition and inherited alarm. You recognize when intensity is merely familiar. You stop calling every closed door rejection and every open door destiny. You become slower to surrender your center and quicker to repair when you do. The future changes first as a relationship. You stop treating it as a courtroom where the past will deliver the same verdict. You begin treating it as a field in which evidence can still be created. One day the old cue will appear, and the new action will follow before struggle. You will realize only afterward that something once difficult has become natural. The doorway has learned your movement. The gatekeeper recognizes the revised identity. The body predicts that you may remain, speak, begin, receive, or return. This is when the door remembers you. Not because a mysterious entrance was hidden in the universe waiting for the correct words, because you crossed the same inner threshold enough times to create a path. The path will require maintenance. Grass grows, weather changes. Fatigue can obscure the route. Return to the essentials. Observe without shame. Orient to the present. Use a credible command. Create one piece of evidence. Record the return. Protect the architecture. You do not need to carry every chapter into tomorrow. Carry the final command. When the old future appears, I will create one piece of evidence for the new one. Let the evidence be small enough to create today. Let it be honest enough that the second mind cannot dismiss it. Let it be repeated until the action no longer feels like resistance, but recognition. The life that repeated without permission was not proof that you were cursed, weak, or permanently divided. It was proof that a system had learned its instructions well. Now the instructions are changing. The next repetition has not happened yet. The door is open.